Chapter 13, The New Teacher. The new teacher entered the classroom carrying a big blue notebook stuffed with papers. She had white hair and wore glasses. She was a lot older than anyone else in the class. She took a big breath. "My, it's tiring walking up all those stairs, isn't it?" she said. Nobody said anything. They just stared at her. She set the notebook on the teacher's desk. "My name is Miss Drizzle," she said. "And I'm not from Brazil." She smiled at her little joke. Nobody else smiled. After Miss and Mr. Gorf, they didn't trust teachers. "Drizzle?" thought Dee Dee. "Where have I heard that name before?" "Where are you from?" asked Leslie. "Actually, I was born not too far from here," said Miss Drizzle. "Then why do you say you came from Brazil?" asked Benjamin. "No, I said I wasn't from Brazil," said Miss Drizzle. "Have you ever been to Brazil?" asked Eric Fry. "No," explained Miss Drizzle. "It was just a little joke. Brazil rhymes with drizzle. I thought it might help you remember my name." Terrence laughed. "Drizzle, Brazil," he shouted. "That's funny." Several other kids laughed too, but not Dee Dee. She had heard of Miss Drizzle somewhere. She was sure of it. And whatever she had heard, she was sure it wasn't good. "What's a Brazil?" asked Eric Ovens. "Brazil is the largest country in South America," said Miss Drizzle. "Oh," said Eric Ovens. "I thought it was one of those things that, women wear, on their bosom." Several kids laughed. "No, that's a brassiere," said Miss Drizzle. There was more laughter. Stephen was shocked. "She said brassiere," he whispered. "Right in class." "I know, I heard her," said Jason. But Dee Dee still didn't trust her, even if she did say brassiere right out loud. There was a television show that Dee Dee liked to watch. It was about real criminals. At the end of the show, they always asked the viewers to call the police if they knew where any of the criminals were. Dee Dee wondered if she had seen Miss Drizzle on that show. "Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask me?" said Miss Drizzle. Ron raised his hand. Miss Drizzle pointed to him. "How old are you?" asked Ron. Dana gasped. "You're not supposed to ask someone that," she said. "Especially someone as old as Miss Drizzle," said Mac. Miss Drizzle smiled. "I don't mind," she said. "I'm 66 years old. You can ask me anything you want." "Anything?" asked Joy. "I'm a teacher," said Miss Drizzle. "That's what I'm here for." Paul raised his hand. "How much do you weigh?" he asked. 124 pounds, said Miss Drizzle. "How much money do you make?" asked Eric Bacon. "I'm a substitute teacher," explained Miss Drizzle, "so I only make money on days that I teach. Then I make $51.18 a day." "What a rip-off," said Jenny. "You should make at least 200. "That would be nice," said Miss Drizzle, "but I'm a teacher because I love to teach. I love to see young children learn." Joy raised her hand. "How many men have you kissed in your whole life?" Miss Drizzle thought a moment, as she appeared to be counting on her fingers. 31, she said. Everyone gasped. Dee Dee raised her hand. Miss Drizzle smiled at her. "Yes, the girl in the pretty flowered t-shirt?" "Have you ever been in jail?" asked Dee Dee. "No," said Miss Drizzle. "Are the police after you?" "No," said Miss Drizzle. Dee Dee still didn't trust her. "Okay," said Miss Drizzle. "Before we get started, I want to say one more thing. I enjoy teaching so much that sometimes I get a little carried away. I talk too much. So if I start to get boring, will somebody please raise your hand and tell me?" "For real?" asked Todd. "You want us to tell you to stop talking? And we won't get in trouble?" asked BB. "No, of course not," said Miss Drizzle. "You'll be helping me and the rest of your class. You're not going to learn anything if you're bored." "Cool," said Terrence. "Oh, I suppose when I first started teaching, I used to be a little more strict," said Miss Drizzle. "I even worried about things like whether my students had clean fingernails or if their shirts were tucked in," she laughed. "But times have changed. I've changed. Besides, the kids were a lot worse back then, at least some of them." For just a second, Her sweet face turned sour as she looked at her notebook on her desk. Then she smiled again. I believe teaching requires mutual cooperation. I will cooperate with you, and you need to cooperate with me. If we work together, we will have a very enjoyable learning experience. Her face turned sour again. But if you cross me, you will be very, very sorry. She ran her fingers over her blue notebook. Oh, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday I will get you. You can run, but you can't hide. She smiled. Okay, let's get started.